April 1992. After battling heavy traffic, Nancy Blackburn finally arrives at her destination. A weekend of peace and relaxation awaits. Or so she believes. For Nancy Blackburn, the trip marks the end of a long, cold winter. But it also marks the beginning of a nightmare. A nightmare that will yet claim many more victims.
He's an absolute sexual deviant. He's a predator. The viciousness that he displayed, his ruthlessness, I find to be just chilling.
You clearly had someone to me to fit the category of a serial killer.
Investigators must work feverishly to identify an elusive psychopath.
We had no idea who that person was.
Then hunt him down and stop his rampage.
There would be no end of victims until he was caught.
Uncle Ian? Auntie Nance?
Monday, April 13th, 1992. In an upscale neighborhood in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Jamie Osborne checks in on his aunt and uncle after they fail to show up at a weekend family party. But no one's home. Nothing in the house suggests where they may be.
Uncle Ian? Auntie Nance?
About 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the evening, he also notices that there's keys to the vehicle in the key container.
The keys are to Nancy Blackburn's car. Perhaps it holds a clue to the couple's whereabouts.
He goes to the back of the car, opens the trunk.
Inside is a sight Jamie will never forget. Metro Toronto police are soon on the scene.
It was called about two bodies found in the trunk of a car at 3 St. Leonard's in 53 Division in downtown Toronto.
Detective Sergeant Doug Grady joins forensics expert Richard McEwen, and the investigation begins. An initial glance at the naked female victim reveals the case's first piece of information.
Lividity, which is the blood flowing to the lowest possible area, had set in on the victim, and she had been in the position she was for some time.
The dead couple is quickly identified as Nancy and Ian Blackburn. Neither have been seen for some days. As Nancy's car is secured to protect it from the elements, Grady moves his team inside the Blackburns' upscale North Toronto home. They spend hours combing it for signs of foul play.
Nothing was found that was out of place within the house. There's no signs of violence or any type of struggle that was noticeable.
It becomes evident that the couple was not murdered within these walls. But why were they killed at all?
He was the owner-broker of a business with a partner. They were quite successful. The female victim was a registered nurse who was actively involved in businesses in Toronto. So they were well enough off.
Authorities wonder, was robbery the prime motive behind the murders? They soon get their answer.
There's no way a thief could miss us.
All the Blackburn's possessions seem to be in place, but they learn that something crucial is missing.
And then when I open up the car...
Ian Blackburn's car is not in the garage or anywhere near the property. Grady issues an all-points bulletin for the vehicle as the bodies are removed from Nancy's car and sent to the morgue. Her vehicle is then taken to the Center of Forensic Sciences to be investigated.
And then we did an extensive examination of the car. Fingerprints analysis done on all the surfaces of the car.
Police are hopeful the killer left behind evidence of himself, but they are disappointed.
Unfortunately, no usable fingerprints were found on the car itself. And we could attribute that to the fact that it was cold weather.
Sweat is necessary for a clean fingerprint. In cold weather, the pores that provide sweat close up and leave little moisture behind. In the back seat, authorities do find something interesting. A thermal bag from which they recover a roasting pan. Inside the pan is a fully prepared dinner of beef and vegetables. Meanwhile, at the morgue, an examination of Ian Blackburn's injuries raises more questions than it answers. McEwen determines that he was suffocated after being severely beaten.
He had been punched in the face. He had bruising to him. Somebody had taken control of him quite strongly.
A look at the victim's right leg reveals a particularly intriguing clue.
But he had an unusual, in my experience, unusual markings. Just above his right knee, there was a ligature mark, a very strong ligature mark.
Most captives McEwen has dealt with have been bound at the wrists and ankles. Why would Ian be tied around the knee?
He also had a cylinder mark around his skull. Is consistent with a firearm being placed there very strongly against the side of his head.
McEwen now examines Nancy Blackburn. She too has been asphyxiated. No evidence of sexual assault is found, but her injuries paint a picture of extreme violence. Most alarming is the discovery that both of Nancy's shoulders have been pulled out of their sockets.
At first you're trying to figure out in what kind of scenarios could have resulted in this.
At the forensic garage, investigators finally recover a piece of hard evidence, a bloody Kleenex on the floor of the car. Lab analysis reveals that the blood is not a match to either victim. Could it be the killers? There's no way to be sure. With nothing but speculation to go on, Grady and his team are in need of a break. And suddenly they get one, when Ian Blackburn's car is located 1 hour north of the city at his summer farmhouse. On the case is Detective Inspector Jim Hutchison.
The male victim's vehicle was still in the Caledon area, had been parked there for considerable days.
But a much more compelling find awaits Hutchison inside. Police believe they have just found their murder scene. The bodies of Ian and Nancy Blackburn are found in Nancy's car at the couple's Toronto home. The search for their killer leads police 1 hour north of the city to the Blackburns' summer farmhouse. Ian Blackburn's car has been found outside, and human blood on the stairs inside. Detectives Grady and McEwen arrive on the scene. Together with Inspector Hutchison, they seek hard evidence to prove this is their crime scene. Ian Blackburn's car places him at the location within the time frame when the couple died.
We could tell that the vehicle had been there for at least a few days because there were markings around the car where rain had come down and where the soot had been, and there was a clear outline around the vehicle.
Grady obtains phone records for the farmhouse and discovers that the last 2 outgoing calls were made to the Blackburns' Toronto home 3 days before the couple was discovered. This evidence, together with the roaster from Nancy's car, suggests that Ian began the day alone at the cabin and telephoned Nancy to join him.
The speculation was that she had driven up to meet with her husband and had brought a prepared meal.
And at that point, we believe both vehicles were at the farmhouse.
Speculation becomes fact when lab results confirm the blood found on the stairs is Nancy's. At the same time, the investigators receive some startling information from local authorities. 6 months earlier, another Toronto resident had been attacked only 2 kilometers away from the Blackburn cottage.
A vehicle was found off the road in the ditch in Caledon of a store owner from Toronto by the name of Carolyn Case. She had disappeared from her store downtown Toronto, and then there was some blood found in the car that was identified as being Carolyn Case.
Presumed murdered, Case's body has not been recovered. As police wonder if the 2 crimes could be connected, the investigation takes another turn.
Look at the window, gentlemen.
Yeah? You think this is the point of entry, or?
It looks like it, officer. Flashlight, please.
There were small pry marks on a window that indicated that there had been forced entry to it.
In here, and he made his way in with a, looks like what could be a knife.
Tool impressions are recorded, and investigators soon learn from local police just how significant they are. It seems that cops throughout the area are all too familiar with these impressions, having seen them at a rash of unique cottage break-ins over the winter. The homicide team is told all about the strange and elusive intruder known as the House Hermit.
The press nicknamed him the House Hermit, and that's how he became known. He would break into a cottage over the winter and live there for a period of time and then abandon it.
He was using the bed, he had the heat turned on in the area, he had a fry pan that he was using.
Evidence of a visit by the House Hermit includes mounds of used tea bags.
Our suspect liked to drink Twining's tea.
And that's not all.
He was using plastic jugs to keep his urine because the water system was not turned on for the winters.
He also keeps a stockpile of his own feces, wrapped in newspapers.
Paper was folded in a kind of unique manner.
We referred to it as a fish and chip tuck.
What sounds merely eccentric turns possibly sinister when the team is informed that one of the cottages the House Hermit broke into was that of a gun collector.
That break-and-enter, several handguns were taken. Newer guns, older guns, automatic revolvers. And that was quite a concern.
Investigators wonder, could the mysterious Hermit also be a killer?
So we had an idea that whoever was committing the break-and-enters may be the person responsible for these murders.
The problem with this theory is that no evidence is found inside the Blackburn farmhouse to suggest the House Hermit camped here. Hutchison moves the hunt for clues outside.
I had brought in the ERT team, emergency response team, to search the property and also all the concession roads and that leading up and down the farm.
The effort soon turns up exactly what the police are hoping for. Garbage bags on the Blackburn property containing signs of the House Hermit. Tea bags, urine-filled jugs, and the most telling calling card of all,
There were human feces wrapped in the sports section of a newspaper from the Toronto Star.
The pages are dated February 27th. Inside the farmhouse, Grady finds a newspaper for the same date, missing the sports section.
It more or less tied in the victim's residence to what we found outside.
In the garbage, investigators also recover ammunition they are able to trace back to the break-in at the gun collector's cottage. Authorities now suspect that one of those stolen guns had been pressed against Ian Blackburn's head.
We put out the information on the firearms, all of the serial numbers of the firearms.
In another disturbing development at the morgue, medical examiners are getting an idea of just how violently Nancy Blackburn died. In particular, how her shoulders were ripped out of their sockets.
The pathologist attributed to that injury to having your hands behind your back and then being hung up.
And the pathologist described it as being hogtied.
Clearly, their killer enjoys extreme violence.
But we still had no idea who that person was.
Here we go.
Welcome, come on in.
Mrs. Appleton. Pleasure to meet you. Jim Hutchison.
Then Hutchison is made aware of an extraordinary report filed weeks earlier by an elderly couple, Rose and Samuel Appleton. They had an encounter with the house hermit and were lucky to escape with their lives. Finally, the police are ready to put a face to the man they suspect is their cold-blooded killer. After making a possible link between the Blackburn double murder and a rash of bizarre break-ins in cottage country, police have found witnesses that may help them identify a mysterious drifter dubbed the house hermit. Investigators hang on every word as Rose and Samuel Appleton recount the brush they had with their intruder.
In early March of 1992, an elderly couple from Toronto came up to the Midland area out on Georgian Bay to pay their taxes for their cottage, but also check the cottage and make sure that everything was fine over the winter.
So give me a second, I'll turn on the power, check the pipes. Are you okay, dear? Yeah, I won't be long.
He asked his wife to stay in the car. He walks to the cottage. He opens it up, he goes in.
He was confronted by our suspect, who had a firearm.
Took control of the older gentleman and took him back to the car.
Told him to drive me to Toronto to your house and I'll leave you there.
The hour-long trip to Toronto is spent in silence and terror. But once in the city, the Appletons defy the house hermit's order to take him to their residence.
He drove this person right to Dundas and Yonge, at the busiest street in Toronto, right at the busiest corner of Toronto.
I will not take you to our home. If you're going to shoot us right here.
The Appletons await their fate, but in the end, their brave tactic works.
The suspect got out of the car and took off.
And I honestly believe that that action saved their lives.
The couple now tells police everything they can remember about their assailant.
Both gave descriptions of the individuals that had attacked, and a composite drawing was prepared by the OPP artist.
We had the similarities in the break-ins, and now we had a description of our suspect.
Yes, he was. He had dark glasses on.
We thought of releasing composite drawings, but composite drawings give you, quite often, 1,000 names that mean nothing. Composite drawing sometimes isn't exact enough.
Local investigation at the time of the incident revealed evidence that the house hermit had camped at the Appleton cottage. Hutchison now returns there and discovers a box the hermit had stashed away. Inside are alarming contents.
There was quite an extensive collection of porn found at that time.
Much of the pornography features acts of S&M, in particular, photographs of women who have been hogtied.
And some of it was cut out and classified, and classified, I mean, categorized, would keep it in different groups.
There'd be a whole bunch of breast pictures, and then there'd be a whole bunch of anus pictures. It wasn't that he was cutting out and putting them together, it was just that they were cutting it up and categorizing it.
A troubling profile of the suspected killer emerges from this evidence.
He was somebody who was good with his hands, somebody who was methodical.
And also that he was fantasy-driven. I believe that he could only gain satisfaction through a type of bondage or violence.
Police now review their evidence. Ian's car, abandoned at the Blackburn farmhouse. The phone records showing calls from the farmhouse to his Toronto residence. The roasting pan in Nancy's car. Her blood on the stairs. Signs that the house hermit entered the farmhouse and camped there. His appetite for violent pornography. And lastly, the vicious wounds to both Ian and Nancy. Taken together, they form a picture of how and why the Blackburns died. It starts with Ian arriving at the farmhouse alone, having driven up in his vehicle. He's completely unaware that the house hermit is residing inside. Ian enters the residence, phones Nancy in Toronto, and they discuss her driving up to join him.
Hey, sweetheart.
Hi, sweetie. Yeah, I've got the roast in the oven, and I'll probably be there in a couple hours. All right.
Okay, hon. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
By the time Nancy arrives, Ian is powerless to help her.
Ian? Honey? Please, Ian. I'm scared.
The house hermit overpowers her. Then hogties her and assaults her in accordance with his sexually sadistic fantasies. Finally, he kills her and throws her in the trunk of her car. The hermit now cleans up his campsite, throws the garbage in the woods, and prepares to leave the area. Though police can't be sure how the Blackburns ended up back in Toronto, a closer examination of Ian Blackburn's injuries, including the ligature mark on his right leg, point to the likely circumstance. His right arm was tied to his right leg with enough slack to allow him to drive, while his left arm and ankle were tightly bound together.
And force the male victim to drive the vehicle back to Toronto, possibly not even knowing that his wife was in the trunk, and probably hoping to save his own life, hoping to get back to Caledon to release his wife, who would be tied up back at the cottage.
What now?
And once he got into the driveway, he was asphyxiated, put in the trunk of the car, and they were left there.
But despite their theories, all police have to show for the investigation is a bloody tissue and a composite sketch they can connect to no one. Then, they make a discovery that just may turn things around. Under the pornography found at the Appletons' property are several strange lists of military equipment.
Fokker airplanes against Sopwith Campbells, you know, like unique planes. All crossed off. Firearms, rifles against cannons. It appeared to be a solitary game of war.
But for the investigators, more important than the content of the lists is the style in which they have been written. The handwriting is so unique, it might prove as effective as a fingerprint in identifying someone. The team goes public with their manhunt.
We provided the media with a copy of the handwriting, and it went in national media, both on television and in the print media.
Police know all too well the risks they take releasing their evidence. It may alert the suspect that they're onto him. But if they don't roll the dice and take this gamble, they'll never catch a killer before he strikes again. Police have distributed samples of the house hermit's unique handwriting to the media in hopes that someone can help identify their elusive suspect. Within hours, they hit pay dirt, courtesy of Allison Shaw.
Well, we had a call from a female called Allison who said that she definitely knew that writing, that she knew the individual for the last 2 or 3 years.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet
Jim
you.
Hutchison.
Nice, pleasure.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Allison sits down with authorities and unfolds the story of their suspect.
So why don't you explain to me this list that we spoke about on the phone?
I met him in Orangeville, Ontario. He was working on a building which was behind my apartment that I rented with my husband at the time.
You a bit of a description of him?
I have a picture. Does that help?
That'd be fantastic.
She also provides investigators with what they want most, an identification.
And it was that time that she gave us the name David Snow.
David Snow owned a shop called Nothing in Particular, and it was a knick-knack shop. Allison worked for him in the knick-knack shop.
Allison had seen samples of Snow's distinctive handwriting on inventory lists for the store.
See, this is a German Ju-87 Stuka dive bomber.
Yeah?
See, the thing about this plane is it wasn't the fastest plane. It wasn't even. But what it did do?
He'd come over after work with Darius, who was my husband. Come up to the apartment, have dinner, a couple of beers. It got to be a daily occurrence in pretty short order. I noticed he had a real problem with hygiene. He had terrible body odor. It's like he hadn't showered in months. He had really rotten teeth. It's awful.
In fact, he had the kind of bad teeth that are prone to bleeding. But despite his terrible hygiene, Allison got along well with her eccentric employer.
Our relationship was okay. It was fine. It wasn't close. It wasn't distant. It was just me doing my thing and him doing his.
That is, until Snow discovered that Allison was expecting her first child.
David, I didn't see you there.
Why didn't you tell me?
Excuse me?
You told Sherry that you were pregnant. And you never told me.
He didn't react very well at all. He said, I thought I was a better friend to you than that. Like, what?
I guess I don't mean anything to you.
And stormed off. You know, like he was my husband or something? It just blew me away.
Allison had to accept that something was very wrong with David Snow. But no one else in Orangeville seemed bothered by his peculiar ways.
No one ever said anything about any of that. Ever. I felt like I was the only one.
In her experience, Snow's behavior continued to grow increasingly strange and unsettling.
I had seen this real change in him, this slow decline over the last few months. That I really got frightened, you know? I don't know why, I still don't know why, but I did.
Authorities ask Allison where her boss is now. She has no idea. The investigation moves to the town where Snow had his shop. Police inquire after the man believed to be the house hermit and their killer.
We went around to the Orangeville area there, and we had officers going door to door handing out pictures of David Snow.
Possible homicide in your area. Please tell me if you've seen this man.
When we started doing a background history on him, we found that he never drove. He walked everywhere.
His older brother had tried to teach him to drive at one point, and he just broke out into a sweat. He was nervous. He put the car in the ditch and jumped out and said, I will never get inside the car again.
Police also learned substantial details about Snow's departure from the area over 8 months ago.
October 3rd of 1991, he went into the taxi stand in Orangeville, which he used. It was very, very early in the morning. He was covered with mud, and he was wet, and he got a ride, and he paid cash and jumped out of the vehicle in Guelph, and that's the last that he was seen in Orangeville.
The most alarming thing about Snow's disappearance is that it occurred on the very same day that the car of Toronto store owner Carolyn Case was found in a ditch in Caledon.
Now, the location of that car, if you follow the county road that the car was on, slightly farther north, it almost runs into the area where the Snow's family home was.
David Snow may not be just a killer. He may be a serial killer.
I thought somebody who's committed these type of crimes is not going to stop until they're caught. They have no regard for anybody else. So, yes, we were concerned.
Authorities put out a Canada-wide arrest warrant for their prime suspect. But as they scramble to find David Snow, a predator is stalking more prey. David Snow is the prime suspect in the murders of Ian and Nancy Blackburn. Now, just as police launch an intense search to find him, a 21-year-old photo store clerk goes missing on July 1st, 1992. No one has seen her since the previous evening when she worked alone at the business. On the case is RCMP investigator Randy Bennett. But the strange thing about this crime is that it hasn't taken place in Toronto or even Ontario. The victim has been abducted over 3,000 kilometers away in Vancouver, British Columbia. Besides no witnesses, the scene offers few clues for Bennett's investigators.
They had absolutely no information to work on, and were relying on some public assistance to try to support their investigation.
Law enforcement combs the city looking for the abducted woman. 10 days later, there's still no sign of her. Then, on July 11th, there's another kidnapping.
There had been a young lady abducted from a video store in North Vancouver.
The only witness to the crime is a badly shaken video store manager.
It was somewhat sketchy information that a lone male individual entered the video store. The manager was tied up and left in the building, and a female employee was removed from the building. The manager was able to free himself from his ligatures and made the call in that there'd been a robbery and an abduction, and the employee was missing.
In describing the perpetrator, the manager notes that he had terrible body odor and a mouthful of rotten teeth. Bennett learns the victim's car is missing from the parking lot, and a citywide dragnet begins. Among the cops on high alert is Constable David Kwasnica. He decides to head for Mount Seymour Provincial Park, as the area best fits his theory about the man they are hunting.
I felt that the suspect was abducting this woman in order to sexually assault her and would likely take the woman to a secluded area.
Kwasnica drives around the corner in a remote area of the park.
And that's where we found the vehicle.
They called in the location where they were at, and we were sending extra members to reinforce and to provide backup for them.
Kwasnica and his partner proceed to secure the vehicle and look for any clues the abductor may have left behind.
And at that point, that's when we heard the screaming from the forest.
Tucked in the woods, just off the road, Kwasnica discovers the badly assaulted victim from the video store. At least she's alive.
She was in a squatting position. Her wrists were tied to her ankles.
And just as backup arrives, Kwasnica gets another shock.
And I started running towards the screams that I heard.
Not far from the first victim, the officers discover a makeshift campsite. Tied to a tree is another woman who's been severely brutalized. Kwasnica immediately recognizes her as the victim kidnapped 10 days earlier from the photo store.
The crime scene had some sleeping bags and personal articles and personal clothing and some food garbage and debris.
Kwasnica and his partner try to comfort the traumatized woman.
What disturbed me was how this victim reacted with no reaction, just like very calm, cool, collected, and monotone voice.
As the women are escorted out of the woods, more police move in, and the hunt for the perpetrator kicks into high gear.
They were directed that we would deploy other police cars to start setting up roadblocks and try to contain a male suspect that had fled off into the bushes.
But given the nature of Mount Seymour Park, that's not going to be easy.
It's very densely treed with lots of undergrowth and so forth, and because it's on a mountain slope, you can probably hide in any crevice or corner or crack or under any trees or bushes and stay hidden for quite some period of time.
As the massive manhunt gets underway, authorities searching the second victim's car find a gun.
The police officers called the serial numbers into our office and they ran them on the national database.
Bennett learns that the gun was stolen in a cottage robbery in Ontario by a man wanted on a countrywide murder warrant. His name is David Snow.
I get a call from British Columbia, and I think it's your fellow they're looking for. Oh, I was totally shocked.
You're serious?
Ontario police can only hope that BC authorities will do what they could not: find and capture their killer. Concerns about a psychopath loose in the park are soon compounded when authorities learn that a marathon is taking place.
We were worried that he would grab another victim.
As night falls, the manhunt becomes much more difficult, but failure is not an option.
We had one of the greatest threats to the community that the community has seen in a long time.
And for a local restaurant owner, it's a threat that's all too real. After abducting and assaulting 2 women in Vancouver, David Snow is being hunted by police in Mount Seymour Provincial Park. They don't know he's managed to flee the area, and choose another victim at a secluded restaurant. Snow forces the woman to the back of the building, but he's unaware that she was able to trigger the restaurant's silent alarm. With most law enforcement resources diverted to Mount Seymour, it falls on Constable Peter Cross and his partner John Westlock to respond.
We were doing what you would call standard routine police calls. We got 2 calls for alarms. One was in Edgemont Village, and the second alarm was for the Bridge House restaurant. To this day, I have no idea why I chose the Bridge House, because we were actually driving by the other alarm to get to the Bridge House alarm.
Nothing appears out of place upon their arrival, and they can't hear the victim. Constable Cross finally arrives at the back of the building.
Freeze! And that's when he starts running.
In one fell swoop, Cross brings to an end Snow's deadly rampage.
Now go back to the woman back there. She needs help.
I said, "You're the fellow we're looking for, aren't you?" And he said, "Yeah, I think so."
You're gonna be okay. Can you hear me?
Snow's victim is alive, if just barely.
We were told by the hospital staff that she was 30 to 45 seconds away from dying. To come across someone that is in the process of being killed is extremely rare. To have the ability to stop it and have the ability to catch the guy doing it, I think is, yeah, it's one of those moments in time that, yeah, you're pretty proud of it when you're done.
Snow first stands trial in British Columbia.
We were able to secure convictions against David Snow for several counts of abduction, forcible confinement, sexual assault, and aggravated assault.
After being sentenced, he's returned to Ontario to stand trial for the Blackburn homicides.
A DNA sample is obtained from him, and it's subsequently matched to the blood in the Blackburn car.
Police see that years of neglect have left Snow's gums prone to bleeding. Poor hygiene caused him to leave key evidence behind.
On top of all the circumstantial evidence that we had, that was the bonus to show that there was David Snow's blood in the deceased car. That was irrefutable.
David Snow is convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The body of Carolyn Case is eventually recovered, but for lack of evidence, he's never charged with her slaying.
I don't believe that there's any redeeming merit in David Snow whatsoever. He's not an individual that could come back into the community.
The viciousness that he displayed, his ruthlessness, I find to be just chilling.
I have no idea what drove him. The psychiatrists will spend years studying as to what prompted him to this behavior.
I would drive him home. 10 or 11 o'clock at night, the 2 of us on the pitch black dirt roads. I never thought twice about it.
Declared a dangerous offender, David Snow will spend the rest of his life behind bars.